And now, you're listening to the Mad Dad Podcast with your host, Gabe Gonzalez.
Hey everyone, today millions of Americans and people all over the world are waking up to the same nonsensical news and media that floods their social circles and media outlets every day. It's time to flip the script and embrace the truth, freedom, and faith-based value. That's what this podcast is all about. We're here to offer you truth and motivation. I'm your host, Gabe, and you're listening to the Mad Dad Podcast. Let's get mad. Let's get motivated. Hey everybody, this is Gabe. Thanks for tuning in to the Mad Dad Podcast. Today is Mad Dad Monday. You know what that means. It's time to jump into today's episode. Let's go. All right, everybody. Hope you guys are starting off your week with a great mindset, great attitude, ready to conquer the week wherever you're at. If you're driving to work, if you're working out this morning, maybe you're staying home, maybe you're with the kids, maybe you're taking a day off. Wherever you're at, I hope that you are starting your week off strong, that you're starting it off well. And I hope by the end of today's episode that we're able to give you some motivation, to give you some encouragement for your week, and that whatever your goals are this week, that you conquer them. Part of the vision here at the Mad Dad Podcast is not only to bring you updates about things that are happening in the news from a conservative Christian perspective, but also to drop some Monday motivation. I don't know about you, but for me, I love when I am encouraged and motivated by other people. I love words of affirmation. I love being reminded that I'm not alone in my journey to my goals, towards success, towards health, or whatever your goals are. And so part of the goal of the Mad Dad Podcast is to bring you that motivation. And so I want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we go any further in this episode, please pause right now, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and sign up for notifications. We produce content every week. We drop an episode every Monday, and we try to stay engaged throughout the week on our social media profiles. You can check us out at Instagram, follow at Mad Dad Podcast. Also, we have a YouTube account and a Rumble account, Mad Dad Podcast, and you can find everything about us, including our merch, at our website, maddadpodcast.com. Thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot. If you haven't done so already, hit the pause button, like, subscribe, and join the tribe. Also, it would really help us out if you leave us a review, help us with our ratings, help us start to get more notoriety amongst the podcast world. If you are a fellow podcaster or you've been listening to podcasts for a long time, you know that since the pandemic, podcasts have just blown up. There's literally millions of podcasts out there. And I certainly want to support other people's podcasts. In fact, I'm listening right now to about 4 or 5 different shows every day. And so I want to encourage you to leave us a review because that helps us with our ratings in the podcast world. So I'm super excited to share with you that today's episode is brought to you by a brand new sponsor. We want to thank Ojive Faction for becoming a proud sponsor of the Mad Dad Podcast. Ojive Faction is a SoCal trio of Eddie Gonzalez, Caleb Gonzalez, and Cameron Evans, inspired by a variety of musical genres including gospel, jazz, funk, and more. Ojive Faction's recent endeavors have been studio-based productions. The group is led by keyboardist, singer, and songwriter and producer Eddie Gonzalez, who, by the way, is my father. Check out their latest single, Fall Down, on Spotify or on iTunes. It's a really great song. We want to encourage you to go and support their music. If you'd also like to book them for some live shows, please reach out to them, follow them on Instagram or on Facebook. Ojive Faction, that's O-J-I-V-E Faction is the name of their band. Awesome music. And once again, thank you, Eddie Gonzalez, Ojive Faction, for sponsoring the Mad Dad Podcast. Last week, I shared with you that our partners over at Convoy of Restoration had a big event that was coming up real soon. And so today, I'm super excited to talk about that event. This is going to be a community event in Los Angeles on Saturday, April 6th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. They're going to be providing hot meals, hygienic items, clothing, food, and many more services to those who are in need in that area. And so we want to call upon the Mad Dad family, the Mad Dad podcast listeners, to support CORE. How can you support this event? Number one, if you'd like to attend this event and show up as a volunteer, you can work directly with CORE that day. They need as many hands on deck as possible. Also, you can give donations. Maybe you have some lightly used clothes or shoes or things that you don't really wear, or whatever you have that could be given to somebody else who's in need, who maybe can't afford those things. You can bag up those items and you can actually drop them. I'm going to post the drop location right here in the video. I'll also be doing a post this week on our social media, so that way you can know exactly where to drop those items. And then, of course, the final way that you can support CORE is by giving a donation to their cause. Providing meals and providing these types of services is not free. It does cost them money, and they are a nonprofit organization, so any donation that you give to them could be considered a charitable donation on your behalf. So we want to invite you to go to CORE, go to their website, or go to their Instagram and support them by either providing a financial donation, a physical donation, or volunteering to help, or doing all three. We really hope to see you out there on Saturday, April 6th, and we know it's going to be a great event. For more information, visit our website at maddadpodcast.com, where you can get all of the information about this event, or check out our social media on Instagram at maddadpodcast. All right, it's time to get into some of the good stuff as we start to talk about what's happening in the news this week. As you know, this is election season. This is the time of year where the political debates and the political rhetoric and the news, everything's going to start amping up, and it's going to start getting more and more crazy. So just brace yourself. Get ready for it. You can't avoid it. This past Tuesday was election day, and regardless of what your political preferences are, I hope as a voting-aged American citizen that you went out and you did your duty and you voted. And I talked to some people this week, some friends, and I said, did you vote? Some did, but the ones that didn't, they're like, well, it doesn't make a difference anyway. That's part of the problem right there, is that people think it doesn't make a difference. And the reality is most people don't even pay attention to what's happening. But I want to encourage you to do your civil duty and vote for who you believe should be in office. We don't have to agree on politics, but we have a responsibility to try and put the people in office that we believe are going to be the best support to our American freedom and our American values. All right, probably the biggest headline this week is that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Donald Trump against the state of Colorado, who tried to remove President Trump from the voting ballot this year under the cause of insurrection and claiming that he was an insurrectionist. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of President Trump and said he cannot be taken off the ballot because he has not been convicted of being an insurrectionist. And until that happens, or if that were to happen, that he has the right, just as any American citizen does, any law-abiding American citizen does, to be on the ballot. And so that, of course, sent a shockwave through the Democratic Party and the Democratic community, because they are doing everything in their power to remove Trump from the ballot or keep him from being able to win. And ironically, speaking of Trump being on the ballot, in the same week, Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley, she dropped out of the race. She conceded to President Trump. And so what this means for the Republican Party is that now Donald Trump is the candidate for the Republican Party in the primary elections. He is the one who's going to be running against President Joe Biden. Now, if you look at the polls across all of the different pollsters, all of the different places where you're going to be looking for this information, you are going to see the trend that Donald J. Trump's approval ratings are skyrocketing and Joe Biden's approval ratings are decreasing. Now, here's what's going to happen, and this is what I believe is going to happen. The presidential race this year is going to be Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. The Democratic Party is going to do everything in their power for the next 6 months to slam, to slur, to destroy, or try to destroy President Trump's image in the news. They're going to do everything they can. They're going to talk about him. They're going to accuse him. They're going to get people to come forward. You're going to see it's going to get really ugly. It's going to get really nasty because they do not want Trump in office again. But what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to appeal to the American people and make it seem like Joe Biden's always been for you and for your family. They're going to lie about the economy. They just literally spew lies straight from their mouth and try to make it seem like, Biden has done so many wonderful things in his first 3 years as president. Meanwhile, inflation is at an all-time high. People can barely afford groceries. People can barely afford gas at the pump. The economy is tanking. People are losing money in their retirement. I mean, just it seems like the world is blowing up around us. But they're going to make Joe Biden seem like this very relatable, lovable person. And what they're going to do is they're going to demonize President Donald Trump because they do not want him to be in office. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. And I've said this before on this podcast, and I'm going to say it again. You do not have to like Donald Trump. If you're a conservative, you're a Republican, maybe Trump wasn't your candidate. Maybe you were a Vivek guy. Maybe you were a Nikki Haley person. And I've even talked to some people and they're like, I can't vote for him. Well, guess what? We're coming to the point where you are going to have to either vote for Trump or Biden. And this is what I want to just say to you. Obviously, I've made it clear here on this show what my personal preferences are, and that I'm a Republican and I'm going to support the Republican Party. But I want to urge you to do your research. Do not vote based on an Instagram reel. Don't vote based on what you see on TikTok. Don't get caught up in all of the news. Fact-checked everything about both candidates. That's going to be coming out over the next 6 months. And vote based on your values and your morals and the party that is most going to represent that. In my opinion, if you are a conservative, if you are a Christian, if you believe in the values that this country was established upon, you cannot support the Democratic Party in any way, shape, or form. And so I just want to encourage you, do your duty. Vote. When it comes time to vote again, vote and put the right people in office. Put the right party in power. Remember, we don't always have to love the politician. We don't have to love the person, but we do absolutely support and rally behind the party that most represents our values. Also very interesting in the news in this last week, the January 6th incident that happened, 4 years ago is still being played out in court and before Congress. And this past week, new videos have surfaced that show that then Vice President-elect Kamala Harris and her security detail, her Secret Service detail, were not actually at the Capitol building when this quote-unquote insurrection incident happened, but instead that she was at the DNC building at the exact same time, very conveniently, that this attack happened on the Capitol. Now you might be asking, Gabe, why is this important? Why is this relevant? Well, because many of the protesters and people that were involved with the January 6th incident have been charged with terrorism, have been charged with insurrection, have been charged with treason against the United States for being involved or part of this protest, and have also been charged with endangering the life of elected officials, including then Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. Now, there's a lot more on this story. It goes a lot deeper than that, and including a potential assassination plot that took place the same day and then was covered up by the DNC. And all of this is coming out. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is actually real information that's out there. The person who does a great job talking about this is Dan Bongino. Go to his podcast and listen to his episodes where he goes deep into how all of this played out and what he believes the plan was of the Democratic Party. Dan Bongino is a former Secret Service member and also a former police officer. He served on the detail of President Barack Obama and President George W. Bush, and he knows a lot of things about how that world works. But what's very interesting is what they've been telling us is that Kamala was in the building for 3-4 years now, and that her life was endangered. But now we're seeing what they're telling us and what actually happened are two different things. Why are all of these things important? Why are we talking about it? Because it's important for you not to believe. I cannot emphasize this enough. Do not believe every single news source that you see. Everything, I'll put it like this. If it's a narrative at this point coming from media, if it's being pushed by all of these people, I'm telling you, don't believe it. Fact check it. Wait for the facts to come out, because I promise you that we are living in a day and age where media has been corrupted and influenced by big tech, big pharma, by the Democratic Party, and by people who want to create a narrative to affect you so that they can get the people that they want into office. So my encouragement to you, you don't have to agree with me on everything. You don't have to agree with my politics. You don't have to agree. But my encouragement to you is do your own research and let the facts speak for themselves. All right, everybody, it's time for some Monday motivation, the moment that many of you have been waiting for. And today I want to talk to you about something very simple, yet very important, and I would go as far as to say profound. Not profound because I'm saying it, but profound because when you can grasp and get a hold of the concept that I'm going to talk to you about today, it will absolutely change your life. And today what I want to talk to you about is consistency, staying on mission, staying laser focused. Now, all of you have heard this before. All of you at some point in your life have been encouraged by somebody, or have read a book, or have seen a movie or something that has reminded you of the importance of consistency. Even biblically, the Bible talks about being steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, right? What is that referring to? What trait, what characteristic is that? It is consistency. In everything in life that we do, everything good in life that we do, we must be consistent. The Apostle Paul, he talked about daily striving towards the goal. What was he talking about? Consistency. Let me just tell you this. Consistency is one of the hardest disciplines to really master in life. Why is that? Well, number one, our natural human nature, and I've talked about this before, is to take the path of least resistance. It's to do the thing that hurts us the least, or is the easiest to accomplish, the least amount of output. That is our natural mindset. That is our natural response to anything in life. Because why must we work harder, right? Why must we put ourselves through difficult times and through trials and testing? And so when you're trying to do anything good in life, when you're trying to accomplish a goal, when you have a vision, when you have a mission, and you're trying to make positive changes in your life, one of the hardest things to master is the art of consistency, to stay on mission. Sometimes it can be because we get bored, we get tired of doing the same thing over and over. It could be also because, our routines can become monotonous and kind of frustrating. It could be because we're not seeing the results that we want to see in the time frame that we want to see. There's so many reasons why people lose their consistency. But what I want to encourage you today, what I want to leave with you today, is the importance of consistency. Remember this: small, consistent changes and small, consistent habits over time are going to result in big life changes. A lot of times, and I'm guilty of this in the past, the reason why people fail at actually accomplishing their goals and actually making life changes, lasting changes, is because they set a big, massive goal and they go cold turkey and they try to change everything in their life in just a few days or a few weeks, and they do really good, but they get worn out, they get burnt out, they get tired, they can't handle the stress, the pressure of the massive change in their life, and so what do? They fall off the wagon. We're all guilty of that at some point in our lives. I'm guilty of that. But what I'm learning on this journey, and I'm going to keep sharing with you about my journey of transformation, what I'm learning on this journey is that small, consistent changes over time equals lasting change, equals big life changes, equals attainment of my goal. Let me just share with you a little bit about my journey. So I am 10 weeks into my fitness journey. We are in the early weeks of March, and I've been extremely consistent in my journey with clean eating and with exercise. Right now, I'm exercising 7 days a week, at least 30 minutes a day of exercise. I am in the gym 5 to 6 days a week. I am eating clean every single day. Yes, there are moments when, maybe I will indulge in something very small just to, satisfy my craving for something sweet, or for something a little bit more carby. But for the most part, I am being dead set on my goal. And in those 10 weeks, I've lost 23 pounds. I am making significant progress in my journey, and my mindset's changing. I feel stronger. I feel better. I feel more flexible. Everything in my life this year has been improving. Everything personally about my mind, my body, and my soul has been improving. And so I'm grateful for that. I definitely see the results, and I see the changes that are happening. But there's also a certain level of dissatisfaction. There's also a certain level of frustration when I look in the mirror and I still see, the fat on my body, or I still see that I have, some chin still that I'm working off, or when I consecrate myself and dedicate myself to eating clean for like 3 or 4 days straight, and then I step on the scale and I'm the same exact weight, and and the thing is, when you're on this journey, there's the physical aspect that you have to put, you have to put the work in, you have to grind it out, you have to exercise, you have to do everything you can. But there's also the mental battle and even the spiritual battle. And this, what's happening right here in my mind when I'm looking at myself and I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm not where I want to be, because all of us have a goal in mind, all of us have a desire in mind, but we can get very easily discouraged, very easily, just frustrated because you're not where you want to be in the timing that you want to be. And of course, I would love to look like, Chris Hemsworth or Arnold Schwarzenegger by tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. And so what we have to do is we have to realize that my goals are attainable, but they're attainable over time. I've often heard the quote said, Rome wasn't built in a day. And so you're not going to be able to build up your strength or attain your goal in one day. My weight that I was at when I started this journey, I didn't get that way overnight. I got that way over a decade of being unhealthy. And so it's going to take time. It's going to take consistency. And so what do you do when you're in the journey? Whatever your goals are, maybe it's not losing weight. Maybe it's being consistent in your relationship, being consistent in some sort of discipline or activity. How do we build consistency? The first thing I think we have to do is we have to recognize what are the things that are preventing us from being consistent. First big one that comes to mind immediately is time management. In our Elite Fitness Facebook group, which is a support community that I created for those who are on a fitness journey, we've been talking about this in some of our posts, about what are some of the biggest challenges and the biggest blocks that keep us from attaining our goals. And one of the biggest things that people talk about is their schedule, not allowing them to make the changes that they want to make. And so one of my constant motivations and encouragement to others in this journey, along with myself, is you have to become a master of your time. You have to become a master of your schedule. If you don't run your day will run you. And so time management is absolutely key to being consistent. You have to evaluate your schedule, you have to evaluate your time, you have to evaluate your responsibilities and say, okay, I am going to exercise, or I'm going to work on this goal during these times. The other thing is some of the lies that we tell ourselves, right? Some of the frustrations that we have about this journey and the things that we tell ourselves, like, oh, I can never get there, or oh, I'm never gonna be able to make it, or oh, I'm still fat, Well, the reality is, yes, you may still be fat, and yes, you may not see the changes that you want to see in the time that you want to see it, but the reality is that the alternative, I always think about this, what is the alternative to what I'm doing? The alternative to this is that I go back to being unhealthy, that I go back to being unhappy, that I go back to more stress, that I go back to feeling hatred for myself, for my physical body, that I go back to all of the frustrations and the pains and the aches and the sickness and everything that I was dealing with before. And the reality is this: my goal is attainable. Your goal is attainable if you remain focused, if you stay on mission. And sometimes the results that we're looking for, especially when you're talking about your physical body, you're not going to see them right away, but it doesn't mean that the changes aren't happening. For example, I know based on how much weight I'm lifting and how much stronger I'm getting, that I'm building muscle. I know I am, because I'm getting stronger. I feel stronger, and I'm starting to see it a little bit here and there in different places in my body, right? But the reality is I still don't look buff. I don't look, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, That's going to take time. But why am I saying that? Because I know that there's also fat that has to be burned in order for those muscles to start to be able to be more visible. And so what am I saying? Sometimes what's happening beneath the surface is not visible to your human eyes, but it is happening, and so you have to trust the process. I know that if I keep eating clean, that if I'm in a caloric deficit, and that if I keep exercising and doing cardio and focusing on my health consistently over time, that a year from now, I'm going to look way different than I look right now. And 2 years from now, I'm going to look way different than I look a year from now. Consistency over time. And the last thing I want to share with you is this. And this is probably the most important factor of developing the discipline of consistency, is you need a community or a support system to help you stay accountable. You need someone in your life. It could be your spouse, it could be your friend, a group of friends, it could be your family, it could be whoever, but you need a support system, someone that's going to be honest with you, someone that's going to say, hey, you got to keep working, you got to keep pushing, but also that's going to encourage you, that's going to motivate you, not make you feel, like a dirtbag because you didn't exercise today. For me, I want to say I've been so much more dedicated and so much more focused this year because my wife and I have been focused together on this journey. And actually, in the 11 years, that we've been married, this is probably one of the greatest times of our marriage where I really feel like we are just a team like we've never been before. And not to say that we've never been a team before, but because we're both focused on these goals together and we're working towards these goals together, it's just improved a lot of aspects of our relationship, a lot of our communication, a lot of the stressors and things that we previously dealt with are starting to go away because we're working together. And so we keep each other accountable. We encourage one another. We motivate one another. There's days when I don't want to get up and get out of bed, and my wife will say, come on, babe, let's go. And vice versa. There's days when she's like, no, I'm sleeping in today. I'm like, no, babe, we got to do it. Let's go. And we motivate each other and we get each other encouraged. So I want to encourage you, find somebody, get motivated. And maybe you don't have anybody in your life that has the same goals or is as driven as you need someone to be. And so if that's you, I want to encourage you to join our Elite Fitness Tribe, join our Facebook group, and find some motivation, find some encouragement, because I want to tell you that you need to stay on mission. Whatever your goal is, stay on mission. It's going to be hard. It's going to cost you something. It's going to be work. It's going to be dedication and sacrifice. It's going to be moments of pain and suffering to get to your goal. But stay on mission, because if you stay consistent, I promise you, you will see the changes that you want to see. And eventually you will hit your goal. So I want to encourage you today, wherever you're at, stay on mission. Do not be discouraged. Do not feel like it's hopeless. Do not feel like the world's coming to an end. Do not feel like you'll never get there, because you can and you will. You have to envision yourself and see yourself reaching that goal. So stay on mission. Be consistent. Get an accountability system. Get a support group. Get a partner. Get somebody that's going to help you stay motivated, and identify the lies. Identify those voices in your head that are going to tell you the untruths or the lies and things that are not true, and speak the truth into your life. All right, everybody, this is all that I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please do me a favor and leave us a review. Help us with our ratings, and hit that like button, that subscribe button, get notified. Follow us on social media, Instagram, YouTube, and rumble.com. And be sure to share this episode with a friend. If you want to support us, go to our website, maddadpodcast.com. Click sponsor today and become a supporter. Wherever you're at, stay mad, stay motivated, and have a great week. This has been the Mad Dad Podcast.